Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Okay, and what I want to talk about today is the JavaScript proxy object. Okay, the JavaScript proxy object. And I was thinking about it because it was one of those things that I kind of discovered when I was trying to dig under the hood of Vue, one of the major front end frameworks. And I was like, what's this proxy object thing? So I read about it in the documentation. I did this a while ago. I think I might have mentioned it in some other previous video. But, you know, you play with things, you learn more, and you start thinking about how you can use them in different ways. So what I wanted to do is just kind of try something out, and at the same time kind of illustrate how you would use this like proxy object. Like, what does it do? Why would it be cool? Okay, so we'll just call this proxy.js. And the basic idea, what I want to do here is that I want you to be able to create an object that does something when you set values in that object. Okay, and why would this be useful? Imagine you're creating some sort of UI library, and you want it to be that whenever they set a value in this object, that it goes and like runs some sort of like UI render logic or virtual DOM or something like that. How could you do that? Okay, so let's see here. So here we're going to say create const. We'll call a function called genProxy. And essentially what this function is going to do is going to take an object of data, and it's going to take a callback function. This is the function that will run when you whenever you do the thing. Okay, cool. Fun. Okay, so here we go. So the way this would work is first we would create the object. So const original equals obj. So that's the original object. And then we'll say const proxy equals new proxy. Okay, and the proxy gets the original target object and then a handler. Okay, and we'll talk about the handler in a moment. Okay, so the target is the original. Okay, so we're targeting, which is basically what the proxy object is. It's basically you use the proxy instead of the original. When you access the properties of the proxy, you're essentially accessing the properties of the original object. Okay? Now, neat. That's cool. But with this handler thing, that's what's going to change the behavior. So we need to create the handler. So const handler. Okay. And basically what this is going to be is an object. And we can define a getter and a setter. And the idea is that it would run this get function anytime you try to access a property, and the set function anytime you try to set a property. All I really care about is set. Okay, so we're going to run a set function. Okay, and this does get passed in some information about the actual item. Okay, so let's just see what those args are real quick. So we'll just kind of get all of them and then just console log them for now. Okay, console log args. Okay, and new proxy, and we'll pass in the handler. Okay, so now let's actually like create a proxy. So we'll say const test equals gen proxy, and all I really care about is the first argument for now. She's Gouda. Okay, so right now what should be able to happen is I'm going to get back this proxy object in test. I should be able to change the value of that cheese property, and it should run this function. That's what the expected behavior. So let's just make sure that that's what happens. So if I say test.cheese equals Munster, I should get this console log. Okay, and then we can, refine from there. Okay, so let's see here. Oh wait, I never actually returned the new proxy object, so that's not going to work. Return proxy. There we go. So essentially what we're doing is you're taking in the object, we generate a handler, we create a new proxy from the original and the handler, and then we're returning that proxy object. And then we're going to change the property just to trigger that set function. Okay, so node proxy.js. Get proxy is not defined. Oh, it's gen proxy. My bad. Okay, so here we see the argument. So this is what the arguments that get passed in. So it looks like the first one is the object. Okay, the second one is the property that's being altered. Here's the new value. And then I'm assuming that's, looks like just the same object again. I'm sure if I go to the documentation, I can see what the difference between the first and this last argument is. But what this tells me is that we have access to the original object. So the first thing I probably would want to do is just make sure that I actually change the original object. So in that case, what I'll do is just to be sure. Actually, what we'll do is actually, let's do another test. So if I set it, does it still change it, or do I have to like manually change it? Console.log test.cheese. Correct. Okay, so it doesn't change it automatically. I have to make sure that I do that. Okay, so then let's do this. So that would be, and again, it's going to be the original, the property, and the new value. That's all I care about right now. And the question is, well, original. So we'll just say the object, the new prop, or the prop, and the new value. We'll just say value. Okie dokie. So let's see what happens. If I just return the value, does that just set it right there? Let's just test that out. I just want to confirm the behavior of this. Args is not defined. Oh, that's right. I'm not consolidating args anymore. So we'll just say obj prop value. Okay. No. So okay, so whatever I return doesn't necessarily become the new value. So I do have to manually set it. So I do have to do this. Obj dot cheese, or actually technically not obj dot cheese. The reason is you don't know what property they're changing. So really what I'm going to do is obj prop, so that way whatever property they're changing, I change the value of it. Let's see if that works. Okay, so good. That does change the value. Good. Okay. So now the next thing we'd want to do is say, hey, whenever you set the value, it should run this function. Okay, so basically what we do is we're going to run the callback function, and we will pass it the obj. Okay, so it gets the object post change to do whatever you want to do. Okay, and then that's what this function does. Okay, that's what this does. So now whenever I set any property on this object though, so if I were to create like a new property, test dot boop equals pop, I should also kind of end up triggering that. Well, let's see here. CB is not functional. That's right. I never passed the function. Okay, so okay, I'm just gonna say console.log callback. Okay. So let's examine. Okay, so I changed the cheese property. Okay, and then what happened is that it runs the callback. Okay. And then I console log cheese, and we confirm that the value of cheese changed. Then we go to the next one. I should console log test stop. Oop. Console log, actually I'll just console log test. Okay, so I run the callback, but you see now it has boop bop. But after each time I make a change to the object, it does run this function. So imagine I create this object, and then every time I run it, it runs like the render function, like a render, kind of like a component render function. So in that case, what's pretty awesome, okay, is that yeah, you could, and I think that's kind of like how Vue works. I think like basically what it does, it creates another object that anytime that basically you're injecting in the template that refers to that data object, and then every time you make changes, it is going to trigger a change. So basically, when you're working with like your data in your methods and you make changes to your data, it's using sort of this proxy approach to go make changes to your DOM. Okay, so basically you're setting the value, but the setting of the value also triggers the function because you're using a proxy object, which I think is like built into this like class that's under the hood, like the Vue instance. Okay, but in this case, see here, it doesn't necessarily have to be sort of a class. There's just an object that runs a function, and then this whole gen proxy thing can just basically do what you need it to do. It just passes in the object to whatever purpose you need, and that's that. I kind of like this. I probably will release this as a library. I think like this as it stands is kind of useful. Okay, and the thing is that since you can pass it a callback, it's flexible. Yeah, so that's what the JavaScript proxy is. That's what it does. You can use it for all sorts of things. Again, you can just think of any time where you want to have an object that when you set and get values, you want other things going on in your application. Okay, and you can inject that logic in the proxy through its handler, and then that way that logic is happening while the person who's using this is typically if you're writing a library, other developers, they are just getting and setting values in their code, but all that other logic plays out and you don't have to necessarily worry about that. You just think about setting the values and getting the values in the proxy object. So hopefully you guys have found that interesting. Again, alexmercedcoder.com if you want to see all my libraries and GitHub and things like that. devnursery.com, you can find playlists of many of my videos on many topics. Either way, follow me on Twitter, join the Dev Nursery Slack and Discord channels so you can meet other developers. And yeah, thanks for watching. Okay, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't. Please do. If you've probably noticed, I've been doing more video premieres lately. So instead of just kind of releasing like 5 videos at a time and them bearing each other, I'm going to stagger them out. So that way, every day, hopefully, or most days, you should have a new video coming out in the morning. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. I'll see you all later. You guys know where to find me. Ciao.